It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Mandy the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast, and my name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang!
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks. You?
Doing okay. So what's been going on in your little corner of the world?
Well, this week I pick up trades every so often, and I had rounded up a bunch recently because I'd gotten a gift card. But probably more personal information than you wanted. But the trade that I read that I'm going to talk about is Lady Killer. This was an Image book from last year, which was drawn by Joelle Jones and I guess drawn and written by her and Jamie S. Rich. And it is, if you have not seen this book, it is a really, really cool book. It is beautifully drawn, and it is the best way I can describe it is it's a really cool combo of like a stylish 50s drama and a really vicious assassin type story. So kind of Mad Men meets Jason Bourne in a way. And it's, yeah, like I said, the art is absolutely amazing, and it is a lot of fun to read. And the other reason I kind of am throwing it out here is because there is a second story arc in the works for this book, and Joelle Jones is planning on writing and drawing by herself. And the last I heard, that was supposed to start sometime this year. I have not seen a better date than that, a more specific date than that yet.
I'm thinking actually the first issue is next month or August. Maybe
I
August.
believe it's August.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
I commend you because that is a really good story. And it's got enough humor in it, yet it is vicious.
Yep.
And it's just fun to read. I've reread it a couple times myself.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, I've checked that out, and yeah, I enjoyed it too. So it would be kind of fun to go back to that world again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where she goes with it.
Les, what's been going on with you?
On my trip to Oklahoma City last week, I was reading a couple things. A Howard Chaykin collection called The Marked Man. It was a series run in, I believe it was in Dark Horse Presents. The second thing was I've read the first 2 volumes of Supurbia, and now I'm wanting to find the other 3. Supurbia, where the superheroes all live together on one block area.
God, that was so good.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, I remember when that came down, because I definitely liked the tone of the book. It was such a great read, and I don't think I ever finished it, but I know I've read the first 2-3 story arcs, and yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I liked it a lot. On my end, I picked up, or actually I ordered and got in a series of books from a publisher that I've recently discovered. It actually came around about sometime last year, 2015. Sitcomics. 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 And it's headed by Darin Henry, who is a television writer, who wrote episodes for Seinfeld, Futurama, Casey Undercover, and a few others. It's primarily a sitcom writer, but he has started up his own line of comics. He's also wrote a Big Finish Doctor Who audio that was called The Game, so I'm going to need to talk to Carl and see what he thinks about that, because I'm sure he's got it. For those who don't know, Carl Goad is a friend of ours from Sci-Fi FX, and he's a big time Doctor Who fan, and he loves these. He gets the audio books all the time, and he's always talking about them. So I'm sure he's got this. So anyway, Sitcomics just put out their fourth book, their fourth title. The first one it's called The Blue Baron. The second one's Startup. Third one's called Super Suckers, and the brand new one's called Telepathic. Blue Baron is a superhero book that apparently has origins back from revolutionary times. Startup is about a house mother who takes a diet pill that changes her metabolism, and all of a sudden she has speed powers. The third one is two best friends, and they're also roommates who happen to be in love with the same guy, and the guy's a vampire. And then Telepathic is a story of three young teenagers who obviously get telepathic powers. But the thing that brought this to my attention is not only because of him writing it, but for like the Blue Baron, it's drawn by Ron Frenz and inked by Sal Buscema. That's pretty impressive names for a book. And Super Suckers, the art's done by Jeff Schultz, who is a in-house artist for Archie. So the style is done in Archie style. The other thing that got me very impressed is if you go online to our website, and we'll have this in the notes, www.sitcomics.net, you can buy the physical copies, and they're priced at $3.99, but it's 64 pages.
Wow.
Each one is 64 pages for $3.99. Or you can buy the digital copies, and they're usually broken down into 3 sections of 20 pages each for 99 cents.
Again, wow.
Yeah. So, Marvel is putting out books $3.99 at a third of the pages, and this is all the only advertisements in this book is for the company itself. So I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far. I have not read them yet, but I am planning to do so, and who knows, maybe I might get a review up. Ooh.
Cool.
So yeah, very cool stuff. Okay, let's get into this week's topic. This came to mind after talking to a fellow reader, and Les was part of the conversation. We were kind of discussing about comics. We were doing a little comics history discussion, and he did not realize that at one point, just about all the superhero comics were gone, with the exception of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. There may have been a couple others from smaller publishers, but mainly those were all gone. And this was the time of the horror, the westerns, war, humor, and several other different genres. Those were the ones that was kind of carrying the flag of comicdom.
So this is kind of pre-Marvel.
Oh yeah, we're talking early 50s.
Right.
We're talking late 40s, early 50s.
Okay, cool.
And he was kind of stunned because he didn't realize that, and considering how things are today with not only just a prevailing, superheroes prevailing in the comics, but pretty much prevailing in other forms of media, it is kind of something that's hard to believe. But it got me kind of thinking about some of those genres that were so popular back in those days that are not even thought about of kind of getting into again. And I've already mentioned some of those, the westerns, humor, romance. Romance was big at that time, and a lot of celebrity books. And I'm talking about some of the Western stars, not just Western stars, but stars of comedic stars, because you like a Martin Lewis and Bob Hope and some of those kind of things, and kind of got me thinking. Kind of, why did they go away? Are they could they come back? Is there, if they could come back, would they be popular today? And that's just kind of what I was thinking. And I wanted to get you guys input. Les, what do you think?
I look at it and I see where the comics were following television and or movies. For so many years, a Western was the basic on television. Every major network had probably 6 to 8 Westerns on their evening programming for each week.
I was going to say 1 or 2 a night, right?
Yes, sir. It was amazing that so many shows came up, and you would see some of the actors in some of the early Westerns show up later in a different Western. And I'm not just saying guest starring, but I'm saying starring. I did not know that James Garner had done another Western after he finished Maverick. But he did one, I believe it was called Hinton. Now, there are comics that would follow the TV series, everything from Maverick to Marcus Welby to Ben Casey to Combat, and these genres were at that time kind of dictated by what was on the big screen or the little screen. It then became an item in the late 60s that war comics started disappearing because of the Vietnam conflict. You look at some of the comic books, they may be the humor or the celebrity, but you look at Jerry Lewis, you look at Bob Hope, you look at some of the cartoons that were on at the time, and I'm thinking outside of the majors by Hanna-Barbera. One of Hanna-Barbera's first cartoons was a series called Rough and Ready. They had a comic book. Dell Comics did a lot of comics, or a lot of publications for cartoons and movies. They were covering things such as The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. I don't know now what it would be like to toss some of these in. I would love to see some of them. Some of the lesser known cartoons or the lesser known television shows. Right now, though, you've got almost no Westerns, unless it's a one issue or a small series. Spy comics, about the only thing you've got are either Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Grayson. I would, personally, I would like to see some other things. But personally, I don't know that the readers today would accept them readily. I would say that it's a possibility to put something good enough out there and return it to the comic book form for the readers, update it if you have to. But one of my choices, I will discuss one of those type of titles that I'm pretty happy that they are going to come out. Right now, it would be nice. I beg publishers to think about it. You do have a publication coming out of Lone Ranger Green Hornet, which is, to me, is going to, I don't know the premise of it, but that's fascinating, knowing that the latter is based on the former and the storyline that the former established on the radio. So it's going to be fun to see how they blend the two. knowing that there was a past between the two. And that's how it was first established.
Cool.
How about you, Tom?
See, I'm not sure why they went away either. A part of it, yeah. I mean, you're right about the whole thing about the westerns. That kind of died off probably about the same time or after it kind of was killed off from the TV scape. Because you look at anything that's based off of a TV or a movie, it's primarily going to be sci-fi or horror genre. There's really not much any deviation from those, with the exception of Agents of Shields, which you said. That's kind of the exception to everything else. Cause you've got the Aliens and Predator and Serenity and Star Wars, obviously, and Star Trek, that kind of stuff. That's all sci-fi. In regards to celebrity, I guess that stuff's been kind of more or less replaced by reality TV. You know, why sit and read an issue of, say, Kim Kardashian when you can watch a 30-minute program? I don't know.
Let me ask you, which would be worse?
Now, we're not judging here.
Obviously, he is.
Clearly, but yeah.
But you see what I'm getting at. A genre you didn't mention. I don't remember if I had said it or not. Romance. You know, those were really big in the 50s and 60s, and to a lesser extent the 70s, and then they're gone. Now going back and reading, you know, thank you IDW and Yo Books for doing Weird Love. You can go back and read some of those tales, and you're like, you know, you're laughing your butt off at this. But you know what? Something like that, even done modern day, just pretty much tongue in cheek, knowing, okay, this is incredibly stupid, but let's have some fun. I think that could be successful. If everybody's in on the joke and knowing, hey, we're not trying to do this as this is real romance, that you know, I think it would be successful. Westerns, some indie publishers may do a western or two. Anything big, I can't remember since the Jonah Hex days. The last run, and I'm not talking about the new 52 version, but the Jonah Hex story series by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti that went for about 5 years. That was some great stuff. That was some great tales. So it can be done. Now, is there an audience for it? Yeah, well, that's up to the readers and to decide and for us to say, hey, this is out here, this is really good, and you should try to check it out and see what, and you might just like it. But it just seems like it may be an end of era, and it's kind of sad for some of that. War, there's some war books out there. I'm hard pressed to name one that doesn't have Garth Ennis' name listed as a writer. Because that seems to be all there is right now. But you know, I kind of see why war books are not popular now, because just kind of the environment that we live in nowadays. It was kind of different back from the 40s and 50s, and you saw the shift in the 60s, like you referred to earlier, Les. So I don't know. Mikey, what do you think?
Well, specifically to war, I'll tell you right now why there's not as much obvious just straight up war stuff going on. It's because war has changed. War is very different today than it was in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, definitely.
Because World War II, a lot of that stuff from back then was based in World War II. And World War II was easy because there was a clear good guy, us, and a clear bad guy, the Nazis. And so it gets real easy to paint big, broad strokes in black and white like that. But after the Second World War, war started changing. I mean, immediately. I mean, with the atomic bombs, that changed the face of war right off the bat. And then it doesn't. I mean, you spend the whole decade of the 50s in this duck and cover mentality. I mean, you're raising your children to hide under their desks if there's a bomb that goes off. That'll screw with your mind a little bit as a society. And then you get into the 60s, like Les said, with the Vietnam War. That was a totally different type of war, and we did not know what we were doing. So we were not winning that war, and it was really hard to figure out who was the good guys and who was the bad guys in that war, because you had people in this country screaming both ways. That there you got people over here saying we're the bad guys, and people over here saying we're the good guys. And then as you go on through the 70s and 80s, I mean, you're still dealing with the Cold War, and there's war going on, but it's not necessarily with guns and tanks and all of that. And so it's a very different game, and that's when you get into kind of the height of the spy stuff. And now you're looking, I mean, if you're looking at stuff set in like a Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraq War type setting, it's just different. And war has, and this is going to be controversial. In that sense, war has become almost a little boring because you don't have clear-cut battles, and you don't have clear-cut offensives, and you don't have territory being taken. You're just sort of got soldiers over there basically being cops. And so they'll go weeks without any action at all. And then horrible things happen, admittedly. I'm not saying that nothing's happening. I'm just saying it's not happening in the same traditional, obvious way. And I'm spending way too much time on war here. But so that's why. So I mean, my argument would be that there are war books. It's just that war is not necessarily in the forefront of those books. One of the things that I think is happening kind of overall is that the stories are becoming, especially over since the 90s, stories that are being used for comics are becoming a lot more complex. And so you've got multiple genres, if you want to call it that, kind of working together in a book. And it's kind of easy to not think about a book like, for example, Lazarus. Lazarus is a war story. The world of Lazarus has been at war for most of the run of the series. But it's set in a semi-apocalyptic future, so it's not viewed as a war book. It's viewed as a sci-fi book. And it's got a lot of great sci-fi elements, but Forever Carlyle, who is the main character of Lazarus, is a war machine. That's what she is. That's what she's been told she is. That's what she's been bred and trained to do. Now, and she's doing her best to stop being that, or to be more than that, but that's the thing. That's what she is. And that's a pretty popular book, really. I mean, once you get outside of the big two, that's one of the big ones. And there are a ton of other books out there like that. So I think there are war books, but I think they are often somewhat disguised as something else.
Okay.
You get into like westerns and romances, and I, to an extent, agree with you guys that I think a lot of the deal is that partially they are much simpler in scope. Again, with the western, you get the very clear black and white. You get very clear good guy, bad guy. And again, I think as a society, we've kind of grown out of that to an extent. So you're not seeing a lot of westerns, or if you do, you're seeing other types of stories, other genres in a western setting. One of the arcs of Atomic Robo is set in a western setting. So you've got it's kind of a Western, and it actually has, and feel free to look it up. It has a list of actual historical characters from the Old West, and you've got Atomic Robo thrown back in time to interact with them. And so it's an Atomic Robo story, which is its own unique beast in a Western setting. And so they do that some. Romance, I think what might be the best indicator of what is happening with romance, aside from the fact that the single most read genre in fiction today and for the last, I don't even know how many decades, has been romance. But if you take a look at TV, soap operas are dying. And that is honestly probably the last place where you're getting as close to true romance as you're going to get. Not to mention not being that far off of how superhero books kind of work in terms of story. They're relatively simple stories, and soap operas are often, not always, but often based off of relationships. And that's as close as you get. But we're at the point now where they're dying off. And whether they're dying a natural death or something else is strangling them, I probably shouldn't venture a guess on that. But so it's not that romance stories aren't being consumed. It's just that people are not going to comics for them. What was another one of those genres we were talking about? The medical. Yeah. There are a couple of medical or quasi-medical shows out there, and they're not as popular. I mean, even like up to, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure there were ever really more than 2 or 3 medical shows on at a time since like the 70s. I mean, you've got stuff like, and I guess Emergency would go back into the 60s too, but I mean, then you move up, then you get like Quincy and Marcus Welby, and then I mean, MASH is probably a really good indicator. And it's a handful of spin-offs. Most of those were medical. And you move up, there were the hospital shows in the 80s, like St. Elsewhere, and what was the other one? Drawing a blank. And then you get up to now when you go, or at least recently you had ER, but I mean, there's not really a lot of competition for those. There's a couple of medical shows on now. Chicago Hope is a medical show. CBS has one too. And then, I mean, you can almost count Bones as a medical show. God, is that even still on the air?
Bones is, yes.
I haven't watched it in a while. So they're there, but I don't know how on TV. I don't know that there have ever, or in the last several decades, I don't know that there have been more than 2 or 3 at a time. So I don't know that there's a ton. I'm not thinking of an example of a comic book medical series.
Recently, the only thing I recall is Night Nurse by Marvel. That was that one shot from about a year ago.
Well, and that was
within the past year.
And that was resurrecting a series from like the 70s too, or 60s, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. It's I wonder if just kind of straight up drama is kind of just falling apart. People don't want just a drama anymore. They want there to be other elements. They want it to be an exciting drama. So they want conflict and people shooting at each other, or they want comedy. So you get kind of the comedy drama crossovers, or they want something like horror. So you get horror. I mean, horror is kind of dramatic, so you end up getting comedy horror a lot. And ultimately, that's a kind of a long-winded way to go back to. I think a lot of it is just that the stories are just slightly more complex than they used to be. So it's not as simple, and people they don't necessarily want a lot of depth, because if they did, they wouldn't be watching reality TV a lot. But they want a little more depth than that when they want it. And so you're getting kind of cross-genre or multi-genre shows and comics out of the deal, which definitely makes for some interesting storytelling along the way, if nothing else.
Well, let me ask you guys then, we've talked about 10 different genres. Nate, give me 2 genres that you think could return and have a stay. What sounds like a couple of good titles or good genres that could make it on the market today?
I'll go ahead and quickly throw out Western. I think it's possible to do. I think your two examples from the last 20 years, and these are, again, this is Western and something else. At the risk of beating a dead horse, Firefly. And admittedly, the show didn't last, but it didn't last for the wrong reasons. But it's a Western sci-fi. Another one that it didn't last very long and really should have, and I really liked, was Briscoe County Jr. from a ways back.
Here.
Yeah, I mean,
Love that.
It was a great little comedy Western, sort of almost secret agenty type thing. It was cool, and it didn't make it very far. But I think there are ways to build that up so that it's something that people will enjoy and they'll stick with it a little more. I think mostly those types of shows get canceled because Westerns are so kind of passé at this point. And so they're not getting canceled because people aren't watching them. They're getting canceled because they're making studio executives nervous because they don't think people are watching them because they don't understand them. And so I think if a studio would just nut up and hang on to a Western or a Western and type show, they would see that it would stick if it's good, of course.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I would also bring up, I already did it earlier here, that Jonah Hex, it wasn't a clear white hat, black hat series. If anybody knows anything about the character, I mean, I think he was partially inspired by the Clint Eastwood roles in the Man with No Name trilogy. And yeah, he did some heroic things, but he was hardly a hero. And the stories were well told. They may have been a little bit more straightforward than what is out there on the shelves today, but they were still well told stories. And I think something along those lines could be successful. You asked about another genre, possibly medical, and kind of going back to what Mike was saying, and you kind of interplay it with some other genres, especially sci-fi, maybe with a little horror. I could.
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, other than ER, what was the most successful medical show in the last decade? Scrubs.
Yeah.
Medical comedy works just fine, folks, you know?
Well,
MASH was a medical comedy it lasted 11 freaking seasons. I mean, come on.
Well, there's always Grey's Anatomy, too, so.
Right. I don't have a comprehensive list of these things. I didn't watch them. I never once watched Grey's Anatomy.
I never did. Yeah, I didn't either. But you mentioned Bones. I mean, that's medical, but it's also a police procedural too.
And kind of a borderline comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's crime. Another genre right there, crime.
Yep.
Oh, I think if anything, we've got too many crime shows. I don't think crime is dying. I think crime is living and breeding constantly. I mean, God, how many police procedurals are on the air that have been on the air for more than 10 years now? It's kind of ridiculous.
Yes, I agree. Looking at some of the shows that are out there, I'm just wondering, tell you the truth, I'm wondering why shows like CSI or NCIS, I think CSI had a title for a short run. I'm not sure why it didn't last, why it wasn't a ongoing.
Yeah.
I think when they do that, and this is, I don't know, this may be off topic, but I think part of the problem with those is that they try to replicate the TV show. And I think that's a huge mistake. I think they need to get away. If I were going to write a CSI comic, I would start with a completely brand new set of characters, and I would do it in a different. I mean, you can't go too far different on the style, but liven it up a little, you know? I mean, people want there's a certain thing that people want when they pick up something that says CSI, and you can do that without trying to just photocopy the TV show.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, different characters, a different location, and
maybe a slightly different style of the way
writing.
the characters work together and the way, I mean, don't use the same patterns as a TV show, because those patterns work in a TV show. Clearly, those shows have been on the air for decades, but they don't necessarily work for comics. Use a comics pattern for a crime comic instead of trying to adapt something that works for something else. Use something that you know is going to work instead.
Yeah. That's actually a really good idea. That's a great idea, I think.
I agree.
Pity I don't have better writing chops. I could maybe make millions of dollars, but you know.
Woohoo!
And Thomas and I could sit there and go, and we knew him when.
We knew him when he was just blathering like an idiot on a podcast.
Well, he's got plenty of partnership here, that's for sure.
He's moved on, and we're still sitting here blabbering.
Yeah.
I'm going to be blithering. If you want to be blabbering, that's fine. I'm going to be the blithering idiot.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
You always say there's a new podcast title, Blither and Blather.
There you go. Woohoo!
Anybody uses that, we want to cut.
Mm-hmm. It's trademarked right now.
Because since podcasts make so much money, you know, 5% of nothing is pretty much nothing. But anyway.
Woohoo! That's right. Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up and move on to our picks? I thought this was kind of
interesting. I would just like to promote it. I would like to see some of these genres come back and ask that the publishers to think seriously about them. I would like to see some humor books out there, some celebrity books. And I don't necessarily mean some of the celebrities of now.
You want to go a little more historical with that?
Yes. Well, luckily, the Three Stooges publication is coming out. And that, to me, is looking back with new stories. And that's what pleases me most about that title. But I would like to see some other type of humor out there, too.
See, I think that was the thing with the movie that came out a couple years ago that I thought was actually really good, really cool, was that it was kind of an original story.
Yes.
I mean, it was definitely an out of place, out of time thing, but it was similar, which is fine. It was kind of a style. It was kind of in the style of, but it was kind of a little bit new and a little bit interesting, really. It wasn't half bad. It wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't half bad, you know?
Yeah, it was a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. But it was very humorous. The boys were staged in the 40s, and everything around them was current. And that's the way they were able to play the two together, I thought was well done.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, they were spot on. You mentioned it just dawned on me. You were talking about humor books. I remember a couple months back, someone coming into the store, and she was looking for a humorous comic, and I actually had to stand there and go, okay. And I had to think about it because I was going, well, we could go this way or we could go that way. but I really couldn't come up with something other than like maybe I mean, Deadpool has some humor, but I don't know if that would have been something she would be interested in. But yeah,
Right. It's usually funny plus something else. It's usually a funny superhero book or a funny sci-fi story. It's hard to find. I mean, unless you're really just pulling collections of comic strips out of the newspaper, it's hard to find just straight humor anymore.
yeah,
And so you got to figure out, you got to kind of pry at them a little bit and say, okay, what else do you like? Because you're not going to find just straight funny
right,
unless you're like pulling like, and I don't know if some comedian has written a book and that's not going to be a comic book. You're not going to see that in a comic book form.
yeah,
It's tough.
yeah,
To me, about the only humor you've got out there right now, just straight humor, is Archie.
yeah, and that's what I pointed her to. I said, if you want something that's just straight up humor, here you go.
Hmm.
So,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if part of why Archie's been around as long as it has is because they just do that. They do that thing and they do it consistently
yeah,
and they do it well. And they're the only ones doing it because it's hard to beat Archie at his own game.
right. Okay, cool. I enjoyed this. Um,
Oh,
we
we
didn't
always
solve.
enjoy it.
Yeah,
As
we
did
didn't.
I.
We love
Yeah.
hearing ourselves talk. It's great.
Oh yeah. As usual, we didn't solve anything, but we had fun doing it. So when we come back, we'll be doing our weekly picks. And we're back, and it's time for our weekly picks. This time, leading off is Mikey.
Alrighty, so my first pick this week is Spread. And Spread is an image book. It is written by Justin Jordan. It looks like we've got a new artist on this arc. It lists John Bivens as the artist. I think it looks like Kyle Strom's still doing covers though, so he's not gone. But so yeah, like I said, we've got it's been a little while since we had a Spread issue, and now we've got a new arc coming. And it looks like Noah and his friends have found a place maybe that they can call home. With the way Spread works, you just never know. But and if you're not familiar with Spread, it is essentially an apocalyptic setting, and the Spread is this. It's somewhere between a disease and like a plant infestation. They're not entirely clear on what the Spread is, but it's pretty nasty. And there are a handful of people who have survived for a while. They keep moving around or they find a place to hide and fight the thing and keep it out. But so, like I said, apocalyptic type thing. It is entertaining. I like that one. So check that out. This, like I said, this is issue 14 this month. My second pick is Vampirella. This is issue 5 of what is volume 3, basically. And this is a Dynamite book. It is written by Kate Leth and drawn by Eman Casalos. And this has been a really fun little story. I like the new Vampirella. Vampirella has, over the years, has varied quite a bit. Originally, Vampirella was very, very kind of horror-based and very dramatic. And, I mean, almost like Conan-esque in the way she talked and the way things worked. And this is back as far as, I want to say, the 60s. More recently, she's gotten a little more of a personality, and she's actually a little bit more likable. And so this Vampirella, she had, in the last arc, what was volume 2? What was Dynamite's volume 2? She had inadvertently kind of become Queen of the Vampires. And I say inadvertently, she had not intended to. But the circumstances made it necessary to take care of someone. And so now she's in this arc, she's kind of figuring out how to live with that. She managed to kind of get out from underneath a lot of the responsibility, and so, but she did still inherit the guy's like money and home and stuff, and his servant, and the servant is awesome. And so she's got some new friends, and she's got a couple of new enemies, and things are just interesting and exciting, and it's a lot of fun. She's really likable, and she's still a badass, of course. But so that's what I got.
Cool.
Very nice.
Very nice choices. It is my turn, and seemingly appropriate for today's topic. My first choice is Weird Love number 13 from IDW Publishing. And if you've not picked up this book, you really should. It collects romance stories from different times and publishers, 40s, 50s, 60s. I've seen some as more recent as the 70s. And they're great. There's a cheesiness to them, but I love reading them because they're so great. It's just, the craziness of them.
They are definitely from a different era, and it is very clear that they are.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed reading that book all the time. My second one is a new series, and it's from Black Mask Comics. It is Kim and Kim. And if you're on Twitter and follow any comic creator or any comic news or news site or blog site, you've probably seen a lot of buzz about this book. It is about two girls, 20-something-year-old girls, who decide to become bounty hunters. And we're not talking in traditional sense. There's a sci-fi element to this, and of course, things are not working out the way they expected it to be. It's been described as Blade Runner meets Jim and the Holograms, and that's two different properties I would never figure you would put together. But it sounds intriguing, and I'm definitely going to give it a shot. And like I said, the buzz has been incredible, and it's from a lot of creators that I have a lot of respect for their work, and they've enjoyed at least the first issue that they read. So I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz.
Yeah, a lot of buzz. I mean, oh my God. Les, what you got?
Well, first I want to congratulate you on your choices there, because both look like they're going to be fun, as are Mike's.
Yep.
It's totally different stuff, that's for certain. What I have first is Doctor Who and the Supremacy of the Cybermen by Titan Comics. This is a 5-week episodic series that they're going to do in commemoration of Doctor Who Week. And in this one, George Mann and Kevin Scott as the writers, and Alessandro Vitti and some various artists talk about Rassilon, the fallen leader of the Time Lords. In this story, he has been captured by the Cybermen, who now have the ability for time travel. So you're going to get bounced around quite a bit in this one. It's a 5-week series, so I'm recommending that you jump on quick. Their last year series was a lot of fun because you did deal with many of the doctors, and this is going to happen the same way. My second choice from DC is what I alluded to earlier in the podcast, and this is Batman 66 meets Steed and Mrs. Peel. To me, the Avengers. Ian Edginton and Matthew Dow Smith are the creators of this gem, and in it, Bruce Wayne is showing a UK electronics company head around Gotham City, and they run into Catwoman. Now, Bruce can't become Batman, so, wow, no Batman. Instead, some people are there to take up the slack, and that is Steed and Peel. I'm really looking forward to this because the Batman 66 minis that they've done so far have been a lot of fun. This too will be a 6-issue series, so I've got a feeling that they're going to bring the UK characters to life here too. The only other thing I want to do is let you know that both Future Quest and the Flintstones are coming out this week. So you're going to get the continuation story of Future Quest and the first issue of Flintstones. I hope that these will do well again too. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good choices. Good choices all around. Awesome. Okay. Any shout-outs or anything y'all want to add before we close things up this week?
Sure. Got a bit of a shout-out today on Twitter from the Comic Confidential podcast, and so I thought I'd go ahead and say thanks, guys. And we had also gotten a shout-out a few days ago from the Jake and Tom Conquer the World podcast, kind of in the same vein. So thanks to you guys, too.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I do want to mention that we did get a shout out from Darby Pop Publishing regarding an earlier episode where we had mentioned, or actually you mentioned, Fake Empire, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, Eric Balicki's book.
Cool. So shout out to them for shouting out to us. So appreciate you guys doing all of that.
Keep putting out those good books.
Yeah, definitely.
Woo.
Anything else before we do our usual?
Yes, I just want to say that I am not Moltar, and I don't think I sound like him.
That was for you, Ricky. Okay, anything else?
No, I think we just need to move on to the normal shout-outs.
Okay, that sounds good. Normal shout-outs, of course, first off is Manny the Martyr. Those awesome rockers who are friends of ours who let us borrow or let us use one of their songs for our opening and closing and our little break music. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to y'all. Love you guys. Thank you, especially Joel. Good friend of ours for several years. What, at least? Oh God, I don't even want to start thinking. It would start making me think old. I'm old. And obviously, as Mike already referred to, the Potter family. Thank you guys for spreading the word of the fellowship. It is very much appreciated, and we're trying to do our best to return that love and shout outs to y'all and retweeting your latest episodes. So thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Guys rock. And of course, last but certainly not least, you general listeners, thank you very much for downloading and listening to this episode and our previous episodes. It's very much appreciated. We always look for feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. Please send a word to us. Let us know what you think about the show. Is there things you think we should do that should be done different? Let us know. We'll definitely look at it.
And also tell us which genre of comics that is disappearing you think should be brought back.
There you go. Hey, that's timely. Awesome. Okay, best way to get a hold of us, you can always shoot us an email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and there is a about us and contact us page. You can send us a line there. We are on Facebook, the Fellowship of the Geeks. As we mentioned earlier, we are on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Mikey has his own personal Twitter page at Mikey Geek, and I have my own personal Twitter page at TomTCGeek. If you do download us from the site, or if you do iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher, please be kind and write a review about our show. That would be much appreciated.
Yep. Also helps you give us feedback, which again, we like feedback.
Exactly. I think that's it. Anything left out? Anything last minute?
No, I think you covered the list there.
Okay.
Nothing here.
All right. Once again, guys, thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. We always do. Until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,